Hello Yates County and beyond. Welcome back to another episode of Invasive Species Friday. Through this short weekly podcast, we at the Yates CCE hope to bring you information about the invasive species you may see around this county. So let's splash around with this week's invasive, carp. Carp are a family of fish native to Europe and Asia. The common carp has been in the United States for over 100 years and, though still an invasive species, is considered naturalized or integrated into the ecosystem. Some introduced species never become naturalized, but the common carp is abundant and established in every contiguous state. More recently, other species of carp, grouped as Asian carp, have been found in the U.S. These include the bighead, black, grass, and silver carp species. They were imported as a method of controlling algal blooms in wastewater treatment plants and aquaculture ponds, but escaped and spread. For now, only the grass carp and the common carp have been found in the Finger Lakes. There have not yet been reports of grass carp in the lakes of Yates County, but the common carp has been seen or caught locally. Common carp were first reported in the U.S. in a pond near Newburgh, New York, in 1832. It was stocked by the U.S. Fish Commission as a cheap food source, but it fell out of favor as a food species quickly. Flooding of pond farms allowed the fish to escape into the ecosystem, and they spread from there. A hardy fish, the common carp is capable of surviving in fresh and brackish water. It prefers turbid, sluggish streams or lakes, especially where sewage or agricultural runoff is introduced. It's not common to find these fish in clear water, partially because they have a habit of disrupting water quality. Adults compete with native fish for food, and as they feed along the bottom of water bodies, they root around and pull up plants, increasing the turbidity or silty cloudiness of the water. This can lead to a reduction in submerged plants, in part because the plants themselves are dislodged, but also because there's less light penetration for photosynthesis. The result of both is a decline in available food for waterfowl and the disruption of native fish habitat. Turbidity also disrupts the ability of site-oriented predators like bass and sunfish to feed. Common carp are considered omnivores and feed on organic detritus, primarily dead plants, midges, snails, and small crustaceans like water fleas and shrimp. There is evidence that adults may prey on fish eggs of other species as well. Larval common carp mainly eat zooplankton. Speaking of eggs, female common carp can carry up to 3 million of them over their lifespan. In the spring, males and females migrate to shallow wetlands to spawn. The fertilized eggs stick to submerged vegetation and hatch within the week. Common carp reach maturity at 3 to 5 years of age and continue to reproduce every year. In the wild, they typically live for around 20 years. Fish from the cyprinid family, which encompasses numerous species including carp and minnows, share common features. Common carp reach around 16 inches long with relatively small mouths, forked tails, and a single long dorsal fin on their back. In the wild, they're typically olive brown to gold. You can tell them apart from the grass carp in a few ways. First, the common species has whisker-like appendages called barbels at the corner of its mouths, while the grass carp does not. None of the other invasive carp have barbels either. Grass carp are also typically a silvery white color and are therefore not as dark as the common carp. The other way to tell is by looking at the dorsal fin. Both have a single fin on their back, but the common carp's fin goes halfway down its body, while the grass carp and the other invasive carps have a much narrower fin. Big-mouth buffalo, a North American native fish, are also often mistaken for common carp. It has a similarly sized dorsal fin, but like the grass carp, doesn't have the barbels. The common carps also have a serrated spine at the beginning of both the dorsal and anal fins, while the buffalo does not. Finally, the wild goldfish, another invasive and a relative of today's topic, can actually resemble a carp. The offspring of illegally released goldfish are prone to hybridization. Goldfish bred in nature have similar coloring to the common carp and also have the serrated spines. They are not as abundant as the common carp, however, and they do not have the face whiskers. As we like to keep this podcast relatively short, we don't have time to get into details with each of the invasive carp species. However, we do have a few more tidbits we would like to share. As we mentioned, the goldfish is pretty closely related to the common carp. If you're thinking that it might also be related to the beautiful Japanese koi fish, you would be correct. Koi are actually a domesticated variety of common carp that has been bred for its unique coloring. Koi are known for being intelligent, and this applies to the wild varieties as well. There has been research into training wild carp to aggregate in a specific area, which may help with various control methods. There has also been research into creating common carp that produce sterile offspring. Triploid grass carp are used around the US as a biocontrol option for nuisance plants. Triploids are created by altering grass carp eggs using temperature shock, so they retain an extra set of chromosomes, making them sterile. These special fish can be used to help fight invasive plants without the worry of them reproducing uncontrollably. In New York, the use of them requires a permit from the DEC, and there are policies and procedures that must be followed, but the research is fascinating. Finally, as we wrap up this episode, we want to remind you that if you see an invasive species out on your adventures, you should report it to IMAP Invasives. While the common carp are so widespread that it's not required to report them, the spread of the other carp species need to be tracked and contained, and we can only do that with your help. And with that, we reach the end of this week's episode of Invasive Species Friday. Next Friday, we'll be examining an aggressive perennial that is not from our northern neighbors. Until then, we at the Yates County CCE thank you for tuning in and supporting our fight against invasive species in Yates County.